Ahoy folks, and welcome back to Broadside Gaming with me, Zug. So this is going to be an update to the Castigator stance build, as it's week one, there's lots of testing going on, and every time we come up with a slightly better build, we are going to publish it for you guys to, play with, test, see what you think. But let's just jump in and have a look. So again, you can basically use whatever weapon you want with this. At the moment I'm using the Shock Maul and the Suppression Shield because I'm playing in Auric and Havoc. Modifier wise, defenses are dump, damage, power, output, control, and penetration, lol, are our max at 80. Perk wise, we're going with Flak and Carapace. You can change Carapace to Maniac if you want to. I just find it's a bit more useful being able to cleave through Crushers and Maulers. For our blessings, we're going with High Voltage, so that's damage versus electrocuted enemies. This thing electrocutes everything anyway, so it's really good, and also so does your dog, your mine, And Confident Strike. Mainly because we're doing higher level content, the chained toughness on hit is incredibly useful, but you can change this out if you don't like confident strikes. You can change this to get the actual name of it because I can never remember the goddamn things. Opportunist, rending versus staggered enemies. That will give you a nice big boost to your damage. Ranged weapon wise, we're still using the Exterminator shotgun, with damage, ammo, stopping power, and stability being at 80 and mobility at 60. Perk wise, we're going with Flak and Maniac. Flak being the most prevalent armor type in the game, and Maniac so we can get rid of those pesky specials. Blessings wise, I do keep jumping around on these, trying to figure out what's better. Full Bore seems to be a pretty stable choice, with 20% strength for 5 seconds when every pellet in a shot hits the same enemy, and Fire Frenzy, it is good. But because you don't have that 5th slug, you are only getting 40% out of it. But still, that is 40% damage. But there are a few ways you can fiddle with this. So if you did not want Fire Frenzy, you could choose Born in Blood if you want some more defense, or possibly Stained Fire, where this gives you a guaranteed 20% damage on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th shots in the salvo. So your first shot isn't going to do much, but the following 3 will have a guaranteed 20% damage to them. So you aren't having to rely on that build-up. So it's guaranteed 20% or a stacking 10% for every round. It's kind of your choice. Death Spit is okay at 6.5% strength for 3.5 seconds of close range kill, but I do think Sustained Fire or Fire Frenzy are generally going to be better. And as you can't guarantee they're going to be staggered, and also this will only give you the extra 20% on the first hit, but if they haven't already been staggered, you're not going to get that 20% because the first hit is going to stagger them. You see what I mean? It's a bit more testing is required, but I think it's going to be down to Sustained Fire or Fire Frenzy, or in the defense tree, Born in Blood. As for the Curios, we are still sticking with 17% toughness because the Arbites is just an absolute toughness machine. With an extra 5% toughness across the board, I'm still running stamina because I find it far more useful than toughness regeneration because we have a huge amount of toughness regeneration in the tree. The stamina, on the other hand, is what's going to be able to allow us to block, dodge, and push with near enough impunity. And of course, damage resistance gunners. But of course, if you don't want damage resistance gunners, you can just stick 5% health across all of these because health is a good choice for the Arbites. Right, let's take a look at the talents. So these have been moved around a bit. Just get up my other screen. Right. So we have taken out Withering Fire because most of the time we're in melee anyway. So we've gone for Hammer of Judgment for 10% melee attack speed for 3 seconds on hitting 3 or more enemies with a melee attack. This can be heavy or light. Force of Will, replenish 10% toughness on staggering melee attack, which is basically all of your attacks. Up close, replenish 5% toughness on close kill. We have gotten rid of Target Neutralized and Man and Cyber Mastiff. So these will give you some more survivability, but we've taken those points and put them into some more offense. Then we've got Walk It Off, spending 1 stamina replenishes 15% toughness over 3 seconds into toughness damage reduction, and we're taking Remote Detonation. I actually really, really like Remote Detonation. It does a hell of a lot of damage, and not just that, electrocuting them puts a dot on them. And at the moment, dots are very, very, very powerful, as they have been for the last couple of months. And also, this does mean you don't have to find grenades. They recharge in 60 seconds, and you got 3 of them. Also, you can stagger monstrosities, because, of course, if you double tap to tag something, your dog will go straight for it. And on a monstrosity, the dog will literally climb up onto it and act like a little spider, or a spider monkey, whichever you prefer. So it's quite useful. And I do prefer not having to fight everyone else with goddamn grenades. That's not saying the Voltic Shock Mine or the Arbites Grenade are bad. I'm just lazy, and I like the, ability to knock over monstrosities. And then we have Arbitrator Armor for 25 toughness into ammo belt capacity for 25% ammo. And then Imposing Force, gain 25% damage resistance for 5 seconds after killing an elite or special. Now, this is another one of the talents. If you're not playing in, say, Auric or Damnation, you could probably drop these 2 talents, because you're not overly worried about taking insane hits from things. Now, this isn't a slight or anything. I'm just saying in different levels of difficulty, there are different ways to build things, because you don't have to be as concerned with different parts of the game. So if you did want to build for lower difficulties, which is perfectly fine, you could potentially get rid of these 2 or these 2. But I'm not at the moment. So next up, we've got Concussive. Melee weak spot hits make the enemy counters staggered for 4 seconds. Into Suppression Protocol, hitting 3 or more enemies with an attack grants you 20% toughness damage reduction for 5 seconds. And then we're going into Breaking Descent. You and your allies' incoherency deal an additional 10% damage versus staggered enemies. A lot of this stuff is on stagger, so it just makes sense for us to keep building upon that. Now, Suppression Force isn't bad, but it isn't stupidly useful either. Like, it will make an enemy do 20% less damage, but my philosophy is they can't do damage if they're dead, so let's kill them quicker. Of course, on bosses and monstrosities, this thing is more useful, but, day to day, I think we've got better options elsewhere. Plasteel Plates, plus 25 toughness. Into Unleashed Brutality, your Cybermastiff prioritizes elites and special enemies and deals 25% extra damage to them. This is just really useful because your dog will literally just go for specials. Like, if they're in play and around you, it will prioritize them, and the AI is incredibly good. Next up, we've got Cleave Boost for 25% cleave. Cleave is always good. And then we've got Castigator's Stance. Enter the Castigator Stance for 10 seconds, during which you have 15% movement speed, 80% reduced damage taken, and I can't tell you how good that is. I've taken 2 Poxbursters to the face, and it didn't break my toughness. Just because I popped this defensively. 100% reduced movement speed penalty from actions, but you cannot sprint on activating. You replenish all toughness, which is really good. Although it does lie, reduced movement speed penalty from actions doesn't count towards you carrying stuff. So that's a little bit of a lie. And then we've got Writ of Execution. During Castigator Stance, each elite or special kill grants 5% damage lasting 10 seconds, 10 max stacks. I have dropped out both of these because Blessed Armament's not super great, and Bloodlust, your dog does do a fair amount of damage, but an extra 75% isn't going to make it go crazy. You're adding, the dog does about 220 damage, I think it was, so this is going to add, I don't know, 160 damage to it. It's not brilliant. It's not worth the point invested, really. And then we're going to jump over here to Justified Measures. 3% damage on successful attack, 5 max stacks, lasts 5 seconds. This is just an auto pick. This is just free damage for being awake. And then we've got Hold the Line. Staggering enemy grants 1 stack of plus 3% damage resistance on the next melee hit taken, stacking 5 times and lasting 8 seconds. Staggering non-human sized enemy grants 5 stacks. Into target the weak. Enemies staggered by your melee attacks take 15% more melee damage for 5 seconds. The Emperor's Fist, 15% melee damage and 30% impact on your first enemy hit with each attack. Drive them back, pushing grants 75% cleave for 5 seconds. This works better with the singular shock maul and the crusher, but it does work quite well with the shield. And then we've got Weight of the Legs, gain 15% damage for 5 seconds after heavy melee attack. And then we're over here with the Arbites Revelatum, 15% damage for 5 seconds after a successful dodge. Into a Zealous Dedication, 2% critical strike chance on kill, 8 stacks, lasts 10 seconds. I mean, I don't love this ability. As an Arbites, crit doesn't mean much for you. Soul Guilt Scan, weak spot hits, grant 2% weak spot strength, 8 stacks, lasts 10 seconds. And then we've got Serrated Maw, which is a bit of a controversial pick. Some people think it's absolutely terrible. I quite like this. It's a weaker version of Can Opener. Literally, whatever you set your dog on is going to have the armor stripped off it, making it easier for you to kill. It doesn't say how long the stacks of brittleness last, so we could interpret that as they last until the opponent dies, or it lasts until the dog stops chewing on it. We don't know. But 6 stacks is pretty decent. And then we've got Execution Order. Periodically mark elite specials and bosses for mercy sanction. Killing a marked enemy replenishes 15% toughness. Your Cyber Mastiff gains 150% Cyber Mastiff damage for 8 seconds. After attacking a marked enemy, you gain 15% damage and 10% attack speed for 8 seconds after killing a marked enemy. This thing marks enemies up like super quick. At any time there will be 2 or 3 in play at a time, so you're never going to be short of targets. And then we've got Malakator, 50% cooldown regeneration for 8 seconds after marked kill. I'm assuming it means cooldown on Castigator stance or whatever one you pick. And then Keeping Protocol. Killing a marked enemy grants 1% damage versus monstrosities and 1% damage resistance versus monstrosities. 30 max stacks, lasts until the end of the mission. This thing's wild. Just, you'll get this in the first minute or 2 of a match, and then for the rest of the match, you're doing 30% more damage to monstrosities, and they're doing less damage to you. So there you go, folks. That is the updated Castigator stance. God, I forgot what the damn thing was called for a second there. If we make changes to the build, we of course will update them. You know, you can check it out on Game Lantern. I mean, all my builds are there somewhere. And next up will be a update 2. I think it is. Yeah, Break the Line. That's not the build, by the way, so don't try and pause it there. Yeah, the next one's going to be Break the Line. So keep tuned in for that. And well, I guess that's it, folks. If you've enjoyed, please do like and subscribe, ring the bell for notification. It really does help us out. And I shall see you all for the next one. So until then, take it easy, and I'll see you later.